Welcome to the Unhinged Vibes Podcast. My name is AJ.
What's up, everybody? It's Coastal, a.k.a. Coast Dynasty on Instagram, a.k.a. let me get that Coast beef sandwich with onions and peppers, but only the sweet, never the spicy, because CT, we're going to bring that heat, baby. Let's go!
I need to work on my intro. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about our top 5 movies. Now, this is something that we haven't done in a while, or I think we've done this maybe in our first few episodes with me and Evan, but we're going to be talking about entertainment. We're going to be talking about movies. Look at this.
Buddy, I'm a national cat. I'm not just bad Commander decks and mistimed math mistakes, my friend. There's more to me than that.
Okay, so I rated my movies 1 to 5. How did you rate your movies?
So this is the question I want to ask you, is because we basically, when we're talking about what we want to do on this podcast, we had a 3-word explanation. Top 5 movies.
Yes.
So I want to ask you, how did you get to your top 5? Because top 5 can definitely be defined in a multitude of different ways. Okay. So how did you go about with your top 5?
So the number one rule I have, the one and only rule essentially I have, is can I rewatch this a million times? The first time I watch it and the 100th time I watch it, am I going to react the same? And essentially, I just want to enjoy the movie over a long period of time. If a movie can have that for me, first time I watch it and the 100th time I watch it, and I react the exact same thing, I get the butterflies, I get excited, that is going to be a very good movie for me, and that is something I can consider in my top 5, 100%.
Awesome. So let me tell you how I went about this.
Yes.
So it wasn't necessarily my top favorite movies.
Okay.
Wasn't necessarily the best 5 movies I've ever seen. What I thought is, if in a hypothetical situation, if I was on a deserted island and all I had was a portable DVD player with an infinite battery and space for 5 DVDs, which ones am I bringing with me? Because it is going to have a combination of, it's one of my favorite movies that I can rewatch over and over again. It's going to give me that same feeling.
Yep.
Or it might be a movie where I watch it and I'm not going to get the same feeling, but it's going to remind me of how I felt after I watched it the first time. And then also maybe something that will brighten the mood if I'm, considering the mood that I'm in.
I like that.
On this deserted island.
You want to know what's really funny? When you brought up how you picked your movies and you said DVD player and DVD, I'm like, I would have said like an iPad with unlimited battery with download. I'm like,
remember Mr. Table Salt? The last time I had tequila was the 90s, man. I'm aging myself here.
I'm like, yo, this guy, I like this. A portable DVD player with the DVD. I like this. I was thinking like either Blu-rays or like downloaded movies, Yeah. Okay.
What am I bringing on Betamax?
That is so funny. Okay. So where do you want to start off with? Like, okay, here, you go first. What is your movie? What is your first movie on there? What's number 5 or however you want to rate it?
Let's I'm going to discuss sort of the feel and why I put this in this 5.
Oh, okay.
In this 5 piece. So maybe, the first one I'm going to hit you with, Back to the Future.
Oh. So
we're going to go with Back to the Future. It is a movie that I saw when I was younger, so it's going to take me back to that time when I watched it as a little kid. It's a very rewatchable movie. It's timeless. I love the feel of the idea that the future isn't predetermined, that you set your own path, which is probably going to be an important lesson to learn if I'm stuck alone on an island, like to let me know that, it's not fate. You control your own fate. And then it's an ultimately very entertaining movie. I mean, Michael J. Fox, Doc Brown, 1.21 gigawatts, my friend. Have you seen Back to the Future?
I've seen it. I will tell you right now, I've only seen like a handful of times.
Okay.
So I know for a fact, for me, it was before my time. Well, I wouldn't say before my time, but it was before the time where I really enjoyed watching movies.
Okay.
Right? So for me, I would have to go back and rewatch it. But I know I've seen it. I've seen all the Back to Futures or whatever else. But for me, it wouldn't be in my top 5 because it doesn't resonate with me.
Okay.
But I know why people love the movie. Oh, it's a very good movie. Very good movie.
One of the things that actually is starting to really resonate with me, and it's funny because the original concept of this movie is, what if you had to go to high school with your parents?
Oh, God.
And this is really starting to hit home with me because my son has just started high school, and it would be, and I start to resonate with the father more than I do with the son now.
Oh, okay.
So it's like, how would we interact? How would young, we'll call him the Mustang, how would young little Mustang Coastal deal with, grade 9 Coastal? How would they interact? Do they get along? Would they work together? Which one's the bigger pervert, right? It's just, a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of that stuff really resonates with me. And so that's why I have Back to the Future there. It also does, it is a movie that that me and Mustang bonded on.
Really?
It's one of the first movies where he's like, I love that movie. I watched it. It's way before his time. And he had actually bought a DeLorean when we were out in Disney World, and he didn't know what it was. And then I showed him the movie, and he fell in love with it.
That is awesome.
That may be the movie that the two of us together have watched more than any other. So that,
really,
for a personal touch, that is why that is in my top 5.
I like that.
Where are we hitting with number 5?
So number 5 for me is, I cheated on mine a little bit because if I see a trilogy, I think of that as one movie.
You son of a bitch.
Back
to the Future 1 I picked.
Exactly, right? So, like, for me, if a movie goes from 1, 2, and 3, and it's all, like, you can literally have it all in one thing, and it plays smooth, right? And there's no really big time skips or whatever else. Yes. For me, that would count as a movie for me, only because I would actually watch it all in one sitting.
As one big, long movie.
I would never watch these things independently. I would watch it as one big thing. So 1, 2, 3, or however many movies there are, right? I think my biggest quote-unquote trilogy is not actually a trilogy. It's a 6-parter. So I've watched all 6 movies in one sitting multiple times. So my number 5 is actually the prequel Star Wars trilogy. Not the original, the prequel Star Wars trilogy.
Episodes 1 to 3.
1, 2, and 3. Yes. Now, the reason why I chose the prequel ones is they're the ones that I grew up with. They're the ones that I fell in love with. Seeing just the multiple Jedi, seeing the race that, the pod race was
I loved it.
Nerdy or whatever, but I loved it was a nail biter. It was cutthroat. It was funny, right? And then going to Attack of the Clones, the second you see the clones drop in on their dropships and the sky is filled with red dust and lasers, and you see an army of clones pop in, you're like, oh man, how does this get better? And then you see just an army of Jedi come. I'm like, what? You never saw this in the original trilogy. It was just 1, 2 dudes with lightsabers. And then the third one, opening scene, boom, War on Coruscant is just the Emperor, not really Emperor then, but the Chancellor was taken kidnapped by Grievous. You see war, you see Anakin slowly fall to the dark side. It's just, for me, it resonated more than the original trilogy. Yes, I do love the original trilogy. It's just, I didn't grow up on it. I didn't watch it a million times every day with my dad. The toys that I bought were from the prequel because I grew up as a kid watching the prequel and everything else, right? So for me, I actually watched them in order. 1, 2, 3, and then once I found out there was more, I did
4, 5, 6.
4, 5, 6, exactly.
I got to tell you something. This is another example of our vibes being unhinged, baby. Name of the podcast.
Yep.
I prefer the original prequel. I prefer the prequel to the original trilogy as well.
Yeah.
Here's why. Let me explain. I'm an 80s baby, so I absolutely have zero excuse, right? But the thing is, I never watched the Star Wars movies when they came out. They were a little bit before my age group, but as I got older, it just never came around. I wasn't really interested in it. My parents, who would have been the ones who chose movies, never brought it around. They didn't understand it either. So the only time I actually watched Star Wars was in and around 1995 when the remixed versions came out and leading into the prequels. And here's the thing, is a movie made in 1978 looks really cheesy after I've watched Independence Day. When I've seen when I see the White House blow up, lightsabers look whack.
Yep.
So
exactly.
I actually do also prefer the prequel trilogy to the original. It's actually an inside joke I have with a lot of my friends. Is one of my favorite characters, and I will die on this hill. I love Jar Jar Binks.
Okay, this is insider. If you don't know this, then you're not in depth with Star Wars, I guess. But Jar Jar was supposed to be a Sith. He was supposed to be the main bad guy, but then
I wish they went with
honestly, it explained everything, every moment, every movement he made, because Gungans do not do triple, like quadruple flips into the water. Jedi do that.
Yeah.
He is purposely, I would say, not goofy, but like clumsy, but his clumsiness, like, terrorizes everything. It benefits him.
He always sort of fell dumb luck into doing the right thing. And then there's only so many times luck can happen before it's a coincidence.
And for him, it just kept going. I'm like, and once I found out that George Lucas wanted to make him an actual bad guy as like the low-key emperor, but since the backlash of like this dumb character was so big, he just like, I'll have him just be a B character or C character instead, or whatever else. But like the biggest thing that sold me on Star Wars growing up wasn't the pod races. It was when Darth Maul lit up his dual-bladed lightsaber.
1, 2,
and then you saw them fight. The fighting, the choreographing was amazing for me.
Duel of the Fates, that music is absolutely timeless. You can throw that in any fight scene and it is going to make it that much more epic.
Yeah, and the fact that they were ballsy enough to kill one of the main characters.
Yeah.
Right? It's just like, oh, so this is...
A bunch of the main characters. Shout out to Qui-Gon. Shout out to Maul.
Right? But, spoilers, but Maul's not dead, but spoilers.
No, I know. But
so it's just like, it made me like it a lot more because the CG graphics were better. It wasn't... I appreciate the original lightsaber duel for what it meant. And the purpose to it, but just the very static movements. You wouldn't fight like that. I know why he scripted the fight to be like that, because he wanted the lightsabers to be heavy. He wanted to be strong, powerful movements and whatever else. He was inspired by the old Japanese movies, this and that. But for me, Star Wars, the prequel trilogy hits my number 5.
I wholeheartedly agree. Prequel over original, man.
100%. Now, going on back to your list, what is your number 4?
Well, you know what? I'm going to go with Fight Club.
Oh, man. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to be brutally honest with you. I've only seen Fight Club once.
So here's where the dilemma is.
I've only seen it once, and it breaks my heart.
Because rule 1 is we don't talk about the Fight Club.
You don't talk about it.
So I don't really know how we're supposed to continue this conversation, because rule 2 is you don't talk about Fight Club. Yeah. So what I love about it is that I am actually, like, I've pulled back the curtain a little bit. I am kind of a corporate drone. So it is nice to have that escapism. I should preface, I mean, I do have a corporate 9 to 5 Monday to Friday job, which I'm very thankful for, especially in these difficult times. But, you know, movies are supposed to be an escape.
Yes.
So I mean, it hasn't aged well, considering what toxic masculinity kind of looks like now. But I do like the escapism of, you know, having that imaginary friend, having, you know, just being able to, and I just love the visuals of it. It just, you know, how much do you know about yourself if you've never been in a fight, right? And it's a very genuine question.
That's
like,
true.
How much do you know about yourself if you've never put yourself in an uncomfortable position? Yep. If you have basically surrounded yourself with, we're creatures of comfort, right? You get the nice, I mean, you're sitting next to my IKEA dresser or my IKEA desk drawer, right?
Yep.
If we make ourselves comfortable enough, how much do we know about ourselves if we're not pressured to change?
Yep.
So that's sort of why I wanted that. And also, I mean, the thought of, you know, if I am on a deserted island, I could think, well, I mean, I could be stuck in my cubicle wearing my periwinkle blue tie, so things could always be worse. I think that might not be a bad thing. If you went and you watched Fight Club a second time and we discussed that.
Honestly, I'm more than happy to do retro reviews, because when it comes to like cult classics or just the feel good movies, doesn't matter if it's actually feel good or it just makes you feel good, whatever else. I would love to do more of those reviews, because it gives us an excuse to go back and watch those movies, but watch it not just as a fan, but try to like critique it and like, if this movie was made in in modern times, would it be this
Does
good?
It stand up?
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I know for a fact a lot of the movies now, if they were remade, they won't be as good.
Yeah, they don't. I mean, a lot of things are timeless. Some things don't age well, right?
Exactly. So I like your pick for number 4. That's a very good pick.
Yeah.
Good.
So yeah, I personally, there is a fairly significant age difference between the two of us. So I'd love to see what your thoughts are on some of the things that I grew up on. How do they look through your eyes?
Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting.
I'd be totally down for that. I think when it comes to reviewing those movies, I would have to let you know ahead of time. So then we can both either watch it separately and then you make your notes and see how different they are from my notes.
Absolutely.
All right. So from your 4 to my 4, mine is a 2-parter. This is a 2-part movie. This is a more recent movie. Now, the reason why I chose this movie was this was, I believe, 20 years in the making. Okay, this is 20 years in the making. And this was the last movie, the second part at least, was the last movie I watched before COVID hit.
Okay.
So this was the last time I actually got to cheer, like physically cheer and clap in a packed theater with 100 to 150 other people.
Okay.
Okay. This is the Infinity War Endgame.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So the reason why I chose this was, one, yes, it has 20 years of backstory being built into it, whatever else. But the main thing was, for a movie to go through a 20-year transformation, or at least a franchise to go through a 20-year transformation, and they could have 50 movies out, but they're still hitting home runs. Mm-hmm. At 99.9% of the movies, they're hitting home runs.
Yep.
And they are so well interconnected. One callback from this movie or to that movie, like everything, if you watched all the movies, you'll understand all the callbacks. You understand all the heavy-hitting moments, the one-liners that connect to other things. This movie literally put the end chapter of one generation of Marvel fans.
Absolutely. Right? It was definitely a lot of fan service for that, which is appreciated. Yeah. It's funny because growing up in my late teens, I couldn't wait for these movies, for comic book movies to be made. We just needed the passion and the technology to catch up.
Yep.
And it was funny because by the time Avengers Infinity War hit, or Endgame hit, I also loved the movie, but at that point, I was getting a lot of comic book movie burnout.
Right.
So I wonder if I would have enjoyed it, if I enjoyed it to the level that you would had it come, had Marvel started when I was 19 and I was fully in on the comic book sort of world. Because by now I've sort of stepped away from it. I'm not as fully invested as I was when I was younger. So to me, those two movies were very good movies, but I wonder if they would have been game changers or world changers for me the way they are for you. Like
now, to go on with that, the reason why I revere it as one of my top 5 movies is because I see it as the end of a book. Okay. I see it as the end of that series of Marvel. So there are a lot of kids right now that grew up with that series of Marvel, and you should watch it. You should have seen it by now, but they're not going to see an Iron Man like that. They're not going to see a Captain America like that. Yeah, there's a bunch of characters that continue on, but in my eyes, if you get rid of the star, the main one, that is the beginning and end of that chapter or series. And now the new Marvel stuff, in my eyes, is a new kind of Marvel. They're expanding on more things. They're literally breaking the rules, right? So it's like, for me, that was a very good last page that you read in a book. It was just like, it checked all the right checked all the right boxes. It tied up all the loose ends. You unfortunately got to say goodbye to a few people, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just like, because of that movie, it made me enjoy the whole journey of it. It made me appreciate it more, where you got to see someone from thinking they were the world to hitting rock bottom to finding their way through the whole story. And every time they lose, They make a suit that's next better. You experience the loss, and you get to see how they progress and how they make themselves better because of them losing over and over again. And it's, for me, it was more than just a movie. It was more of a physical connection to the characters that were leaving and saying goodbye. And it hurts even more because, yeah, some movies, these movies had characters die in the movie, but also some of the actors in real life have died too.
Yeah, I love it. It's a decade-long emotional investment 100%. In these characters.
So for me, it was just like, what a great way and what a thankful way to end off one chapter of the Marvel Universe. And now the new one's coming up. And now for this new chapter, there's going to be a whole new bunch of kids that might not have seen these previous ones, but they're growing up to see these ones because they're old enough to actually watch these movies now.
Well, it's funny, yeah, because a lot of these things, a lot of kids grew up with these movies. Like they might have been 10 or 11 or 9 when Iron Man 1 first came out, and then by the time Endgame is out, they're adults.
Yeah.
And so they grew, not only did they have this emotional investment, they grew up with these characters. So it's not something I've personally felt, or I don't have that attachment with these movies, but it's definitely something that would be wonderful to experience. And I'm happy to see that that's something that's on your list. Yep. Even though, again, CT, man, top 5. Top 5, you cheater.
I'm telling you right now, if I can watch him in one sitting, bro, it's a movie.
Top 5.
It's a movie.
Hey, welcome everybody to CT's Top 5. Here are my 30 movies.
There's only one pick out of the 5 that's actually one single movie because I thought the sequel was you know? So, okay, moving on. What is your number 3? What is the middle one?
So the number 3, the middle one, this was actually the hardest one for me to pick simply because I wanted to take a movie from this genre and I didn't know which one to take. So I'm going to go with The Other Guys.
Oh, okay, wait. For genre, are you thinking comedic action or just comedy?
I was looking specifically, I wanted a comedy from the mid to late 2000s, 2010s.
Oh, okay.
So basically a comedy that stretched the limits just before we got to the age where comedy gets a little bit tougher to do.
Wait. So you were picking comedy for the mid to late 2000s?
So we're looking at, so the movies that I was looking at in terms of before I took Other Guys was something like Old School, Talladega Nights, Superbad, Wedding Crashers. So that genre. So we're looking at sort of the era when comedies were either straight R-rated or they were pushing that R. They were pushing that R. Like they were PG-13 and they were barely PG-13.
They were pushing it close.
Yeah. So something that is as close to a recent movie that would 100% be not acceptable now.
Okay, because when you said that, I was like, the first thing that popped up to me was like a comedy action thing that I said was like Rush Hour would fit in that.
So
but that would be a hard thing to pull off now.
Yes,
it'd be very hard to pull off now.
So basically, what I'm looking at is the comedies that push the boundary.
Yeah. So
I went with Other Guys simply because it is one of my most quotable movies.
Yep.
Right. I mean, every time I'm at a fountain drink machine, if I'm at one of those fountain machines, every time I do half iced tea, half lemonade, and it's Arnie Palmy time, baby. Arnie Palmy time. Right. So, so every time, I mean, anytime I lend, if a buddy of mine needs to borrow my car, every time one of my friends always respond with thanks for the F Shack, Dirty Mike and the boys. Like it hits my funny bone. And so I am actually, by and large, I probably enjoy comedy more than any other genre of movie. So I had to limit myself to just putting one in there, or else I would go the CT route and have 30 movies on here that are, tenuously put together.
Yep.
So I went with Other Guys just simply because it is my favorite comedy recently. And just anytime I need a laugh, it's one of those rewatchable movies. It doesn't matter where if I'm, if right at the beginning when there's that chase scene with Sam Jackson and The Rock, oh man, I know if I see that, I am locked in for the next hour and a half. It doesn't matter how tired I am not falling asleep for the next 93, 94 minutes.
That's so good.
Because I'm getting right to the end of this. So I went with Other Guys just because it is probably, it might not be my favorite movie, but it's the first movie that comes to mind from my favorite genre.
Oh, that's really good. That is, I love comedies too. Like I'm the same boat with you. For me, it would be action sci-fi would be my top, and then would be comedy right under that.
Let me ask you,
100%.
I don't know if you have a comedy on there. What is your favorite comedy? And what speaks to you in terms of comedy?
Okay, so my favorite comedy would be it would be 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Oh, there you go.
It's when I watched it, I was going through the whole process of becoming a man, and like just watching that movie and be like, that's some fucked up shit, yeah. That's some messed up shit. Like this is whole, like, essentially that could happen to anybody.
Yeah.
Right. So like it's the stuff that went on. It was a movie that I watched with my parents too, which made it even more funnier because like there are parts where you don't want to laugh, but you laugh, but then you see your parents, so you laugh along with them anyways.
Yeah.
So it's just like it's in my playbook as one of my favorite comedies. Other than that, it would be any of the Rush Hours.
Oh, okay.
100%. Only because I would relate to it.
Yeah.
I can relate to being a colored person in either North America or whatever else.
The fish out of water.
Right, exactly. So it's just like the Rush Hour made me feel like home, but then the 40-Year-Old Virgin made me like just love that someone else can go through misery and I can just enjoy and just watch it all.
It's funny because it's funny that you mentioned those movies because actually, Mustang Dynasty, he's all in on the Rush Hours right now.
Really?
Yeah, he's all in on watching them. He's got them. He's scrolling through them on Netflix all the time. He loves the idea of that fish out of water as well. Yep. And the funny thing about 40-Year-Old Virgin, or not 40, what's it 40? Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Yeah, 40-Year-Old Virgin. It's just, I'm 40. So I resonate. I mean, I don't resonate with everything. I don't resonate with everything.
Just the age.
Yeah,
That's it.
Yeah. I have a son.
Right. So questions asked and answered right then and there.
It's funny though, because it's weird because it's a coming of age story at a different age group that has never really been explored. And I do I love that movie.
It also helped me realize how different times were because he works at a state-of-the-art electronics store. But it's also when you watch it now, you're like, what are you talking about? That's the shit you can get from like the source now for cheap.
Yeah,
you know, it's just this.
Exactly.
It's a good movie to watch. It doesn't matter. I could still watch that movie 20 years from now. And even the premise of the movie will still be the same, even though the technology will be different.
Shout out Boner Jams 03,
right?
Man.
The embarrassment, the coming of age, it's still going to be the same no matter what year you're at. Okay, so going on to my number 3.
Yep.
Now, you already know I'm a big fan of Star Trek. I actually fell in love with the Kelvin movies. So the Kelvin movies are the newer ones. They're not the old school Kirk Spock. This is the new Kirk Spock. This is the guy who made one of the Star Wars movies. I forget his name. This is the movie where Thor was in there, the guy who played Thor, and his ship died.
Are these the ones with Anton Yelchin in them?
Yes.
Okay.
These ones. So
Star Trek Into Darkness.
Into Darkness.
Okay.
Not Discovery. Damn, I forget. So those ones. Those are technically called the Kelvin universe.
Why are they called that? I'm not very familiar with this.
The reason why they call it the Kelvin universe was because Kirk's dad, I forget his name, but he was serving on the USS Kelvin.
Oh, okay.
When the movie starts, Kirk's dad was the captain as the USS Kelvin. No, he was I believe the first officer. The captain passed away because a spatial anomaly came in from a different dimension, which was the regular Star Trek universe. They came in, found the ship, destroyed it, but before they destroyed it, Kirk's dad took command of the ship for, I think it was like maybe 5 minutes. He sacrificed himself to go head on to that ship, and everyone else on the ship evacuated and escaped on escape pods, and that's where this age and universe Kirk was born.
Okay,
so that's why they call it the Kelvin universe, because they started off on a USS Kelvin, it being sacrificed, and essentially changed the whole universe moving forward. So if you watch this movie, it is, yes, Star Trek, but it is a branch off timeline to the regular Star Trek that you see on either the old school TV shows and the old school movies. Right? So that's why I like it. The only reason why I like it was because, yo, there's a lot of updated booms, a lot of updated CG. The ships are beautiful. It was an eye orgasm. Like your eyes were just like all these beautiful colors, all these ships. It took Star Trek to a whole new level for me. And it was because of these movies that I actually went back and I watched the old school TV shows. I watched all the old movies with Sir Patrick Stewart and everything else, right? But it's because of these Star Trek movies I got into. The one that is on my list is not usually, all three of them are great, but I watch Star Trek Into Darkness a lot.
Okay, is that the second one? Or
that is the second one. The reason why is because of Benedict Cumberbatch. He plays this universe version of Khan.
Oh, okay.
And it's so cool seeing the Klingons for the first time in this movie, plus seeing Benedict Cumberbatch play Khan. And a few years before that, he was Smaug, right? So he played Khan, and he's just a badass. And it's the light show, the action, the storytelling. Yeah, you know the story because it's essentially a play off of the Wrath of Khan from the original, but with a modern twist. And I fell in love with Star Trek because of this, and I went back and started going Star Trek route, 100% Star Trek route.
So these movies are the genesis of your passion for Star Trek, then?
100%.
Oh, 100%. Okay. I did not know that. So
it was because of this moment. Like me watching that movie was like, I thought Star Trek was boring science shit. Like I thought it was just like there was no action. It was a bunch of people talking science stuff and just exploring new things. I'm like, but it's not. I know that the fact that there we go, J.J. Abrams. There we go. He's the director.
There it is.
I know that J.J. Abrams wanted to make the Star Trek more like Star Wars with the big action scenes and whatever else. But that got me hooked. No, that got me to nibble on the hook. But what got me hooked was the actual original one where they actually got to explore the stuff that I thought was dumb and stupid. I ended up loving the exploration, the finding new worlds, the life on a starship, just
the Prime Directive.
The Prime, like that. I thought that was the most dumbest shit ever because there were no fighting, there was no action, but the stuff that I thought was dumb ended up making me fall in love with it even more. The action got me hooked and got me to do more research, but the exploration, the finding new worlds, the utopian society got me hooked and wanting more.
Oh, the evolution of Caramel Thunder. I love it.
Exactly, right? All right. Now, we're going on back to your list. What is the right-hand movie to your main one?
Oh, okay. So this movie I picked simply because it is, if you ask me what my 5 favorite movies are, this is the movie that hits number 1. It is not necessarily my most rewatchable movie because of these 5 movies, it is definitely the movie I've watched the least.
Okay.
But it is the movie that gave me the most emotional feeling at the end of it than any other movie, at least from what I can remember. I still remember at the end of this movie, I got up, dating myself, I turned off my VCR, turned off my television, had to take a walk around the block because
it just hit you.
It blew my mind.
Oh, man.
And this movie is The Usual Suspects.
That does not ring a bell to me, dude.
So, when somebody asked me if I had ever seen The Usual Suspects, this is back in the day. I used to work at Video Seller on Main Street.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. So, I had the same reaction you did when they told me that they love The Usual Suspects. So, I'm going to give you the advice that they gave me. Block out 2 hours of your time. Make sure that you've got 2 free hours. Get a hold of Usual Suspect. I tell you what, I've got copies of it. So, and then sit down, watch it. Let me know what you think. I'm not going to give you any more further sort of information on it.
Okay.
But just sit down, watch it. Let me know what you think. Maybe we even talk about it. So the reason I have it as my favorite movie is I am not usually a guy who likes crime thrillers or
so this is like kind of a crime thriller.
A bit of a crime thriller, a bit of a heist movie. It's a little bit of those. It's a little bit of intrigue to it. I loved sort of the back and forth and the aura of it. They create an aura around the supervillain, the gentleman by the name of Kaiser Soze. So the entire movie resonates around who is this Kaiser Soze? Why is he so dangerous? right? And why does even the mention of his name make even the most hardened of criminals just shiver with fear? So you find out more about this character. So that is why I liked it. It resonated with me. I just had a great feeling about it. So that is why I added it to my movie. So I recommend get out there, watch it. Some of it might be problematic now, just simply because of who the actors are. But it is my personal favorite movie. That's all I'm going to tell you is watch the movie. Who's Kaiser Soze?
When it comes to movies like that, where like disclaimer, it's like nowadays it's a little off. I try to put myself into the time where if this movie was brand new, just watch it how it is. Don't think about outside experiences. Yep. Just watch it as it is. Just enjoy the movie for what it's trying to relay and portray. Because once you start like thinking of all this background stuff, it takes me away from the movie, and I don't get to enjoy it that much.
Yeah, you don't want to judge the past based on today's lens, right? Yeah. So, I will say it's still a very enjoyable movie. Yeah. It is my favorite movie of all time.
Oh wow!
Yeah, but like I said, it's not my most rewatchable movie, but it would harken me back. Like I said, if I'm on that deserted island, it reminds me of why I love watching movies.
Okay.
So it takes me to a place because I'm not normally a guy who cheers for criminals in movies. So this was one that it's a bit of escapism.
I like that. All
right, let's hit me with your number one, man.
Okay, so my number one, like I said before, essentially is like a 6-parter.
Or are you on 2? Did we?
Oh yeah, I'm on 2. My bad.
Yeah, I was.
I was about to jump the gun. I was gonna edit this episode if I did, but I didn't. So, okay,
2. Let's
number
go.
2. Okay. Number 2.
Number 2. Name your 17th movie.
And my 17th movie. So this one is actually, I was wrong. My number 3 was a one part movie, and same with my number 2.
Okay.
But I saw the Star Trek one as more of like a symbolism of all 3.
Right.
But this one is one movie. It's a Marvel movie. It is Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one, Volume 1, Guardians of the Galaxy. The main reason why is I didn't grow up with this style of music. Like, correction. I grew up with it, but it did not resonate with me. Okay. So this literally a fish out of water story, right? He was taken out from Earth, put into space. He essentially lives, I believe is it the 70s or 80s music?
It's late 70s.
Late 70s. So he essentially relives.
It's even 60s.
Yeah, so he lives a certain decade of music for 30, maybe 20 to 30 years.
That's
right?
All he has.
Because all he has, right? And which is weird because you would think other planets would have music or whatever. But, whatever. Who cares? But
suspension of disbelief there.
Exactly. This one, the second it started playing, you see Peter Quill dancing in a just a destroyed place, kicking monsters or little rodents around and whatever else and doing his thing. And then you see the title, Guardians of the Galaxy. You're like, this is a different Marvel movie. And at that point, I didn't even see it as a Marvel movie. This was more like a feel-good comedy for me.
Yeah.
And like the different colors, the great action in this movie.
There's a lot of really good, fun action pieces in it.
Not to mention the sophisticated CG when it came to Groot and when it came to Rocket Raccoon. I'm like, you have a rodent and you have a tree done so well that at the end of the movie, all the tree does is say 3 words, but when it adds in a 4th word, you fall apart.
Yeah.
It's like, how well is this movie when you can fall in love with a tree that says, I am Groot? Or when you fall in love with a raccoon who's cynical and maniacal and just puts him first, but also cares about others at the same time. And every character you fall in love with, every character has a story that you want to go deeper with, but you can't at the moment because there's something that's in front of them that they got to deal with that you are very invested in. It's like this movie, one, just how it was written, how it was shot, everything was beautiful. Secondly, the soundtrack to this movie.
Oh, it's good.
The soundtrack alone you can put on repeat day after day after day, and they're all sing-alongs. It's if you can sing along to a song over 100 times and it not get old, It's a damn good song. And these songs have been out for years and years and years, and people are still singing them.
What's your favorite song from them? From this?
Hooked on a Feeling.
I got to tell you, Hooked on a Feeling, it doesn't matter what mood you're in. If you're in a bad mood or if you're in a great mood, when you hear that song, it is going to improve that mood just a little bit every time.
When I think of Guardians of the Galaxy, I think of Hooked on a Feeling. Because it just gave you that feeling, you're just so immersed in it, and it was so good, absolutely so good.
I got to tell you, man, until Black Panther and until Shang-Chi, Guardians of the Galaxy 1 was my favorite MCU movie. And here's why. Because when it came down to Guardians of the Galaxy, I think not only was the movie great, the timing of when they released that movie was fantastic. Because at that point, that was when I was starting to feel a little bit of comic book fatigue. It was like, how seriously can we take heroes in tights? How seriously can we take this stuff? It's starting to get a little more serious than, even it was starting to weigh down. I mean, because this is also on the heels of not just the MCU, but the Dark Knight trilogy had just finished as well. So things were starting to get really dark. And
plus
really
all the Spider-Man stuff, too. They started to get a little on the dark side.
It started to get really serious. And then this was a movie that was just fun. You went to the theater, and it was just a fun 2 hours. And that's what I loved about it. It went by
fast, and you just loved every second of it.
Yep. And it was characters that that most people don't really have a background knowledge of, that they don't have any emotional investment of. They have no idea of, they have no expectation of what Rocket Raccoon is supposed to be. Right? You go into a Superman movie, you have an expectation of what he's supposed to be. You didn't really have that with Guardians, which I loved. And then, I mean, on top of that, shouts to the Filipino god, man, Dave Bautista.
Oh, dude, 100%. Like, if you could make, I would honestly say these are C-tier characters, maybe D-tier, and elevate them to A-tier characters. Oh, please. Thank you.
Drax the Destroyer. Like, a little bit more curtain pulling. I'm a bit of a wrestling nerd, and I had been for a long time. Same. And just, if you told me that Charisma Vacuum Batista was going to turn into Drax, one of my favorite comedic characters of all time, I would have been like, you're crazy. That guy does not have a comedic bone in his body. And it was, no, man, shouts to the Filipino god. Honestly, he was phenomenal in it.
But Batista in that movie was amazing. If, like you said, if you would have told me going back to the SmackDown vs. Raw days that this wrestler right here is going to be one of the funniest characters in a Marvel superhero movie, I'd be like, get out of here.
Yeah, get out of here. He's gonna go toe to toe with Chris Pratt.
Yes,
and be right there with him. No, I wouldn't have believed that for a second.
Would not have. But wow, he was great in this movie. Absolutely great, and also Vin Diesel. As Groot. I didn't actually realize Vin Diesel was Groot until I saw Vin Diesel walk down the red carpet on a YouTube live stream. I'm
really?
Why is Vin here? And then I googled Guardians of the Galaxy cast. I'm like, yo, Vin Diesel just says I am Groot in 3 different ways, and what? I'm like, good on you.
Oh, making mad bank from it, man.
Yeah, dude.
And hey, listen, if you need a guy to, personify familia, you get Vin Diesel, man.
I didn't even think of that.
You get Mark Vincent Diesel, my friend.
No, that's so... I didn't think of that. That's actually so good. Okay, that's actually really funny. Okay, now going on to your numero uno. Uno.
So, this is the movie, when somebody asks me my top 5 favorite movies, I never mention it. And now that the only reason I sort of thought about this is, this might be my favorite movie. It almost is definitely the movie I've seen the most since I was a little kid. So I don't know why I don't bring it up often, but it's Bloodsport. Starring my man, JCVD, Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Okay, I'm going to tell you right now, every movie that I see Jean-Claude Van Damme, it's like, he's just oiled up, he's sexy, but he's also kicking ass, and he's a masculine man, but he's also good at wearing short shorts and dancing.
Doing the splits.
Right?
Yeah. So he has had a certain flair to him. So a little bit of background to this. I saw Bloodsport when I was younger. So this was before the advent of the UFC.
Oh, okay,
Right?
okay.
So
okay.
it was sort of, it was before the advent of the UFC. It was before the rise of Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter 2, right? So it was the idea of a karate guy against a wrestling guy, the idea of a sumo wrestler versus the Muay Thai guy, the idea of a guy who fights like a monkey for some reason against, a guy who has zero discernible fighting skills, but just a really hard head. Those were all fantasy matchups in the 80s. This was something that never really happened. So for them to say and remember, this is before the advent of the internet, so you can tell people, hey, there's a secret fighting tournament in Asia somewhere. And we'd be like, yep, that sounds right. There is definitely a secret fighting tournament out there where they decide who the best fighter is. So that's why it really resonates with me. And I've always been a big Van Damme guy. I love the cheesy action of it. It has aged incredibly poorly, which just makes it even more of an entertaining watch. It's not even a serious martial arts movie anymore just because of how incredibly poorly it's aged. Like, a lot of the stuff is like, that's not a fighting style that's going to work, my dude. Like, after we've watched, UFC's been around for 25, 30 years now. We know, you can't twirl around like a monkey and, karate chop coconuts and expect to get out there onto the same fighting thing as a guy who's a master of Muay Thai and expect it to work out for you.
Oh, that's funny.
So, yeah, I love Bloodsport in terms of the way it makes me feel. It's just a great sort of mindless action movie. It's something where you can just turn off your brain for 90 minutes. And it's a quick, brisk, like 82-minute movie or something. It is. Most of the movies that we have here, it's our favorite movies, but they're like 3 hours long. Like, if someone was to watch these 10 movies that we talked about, you're looking at an entire day. This is a crisp, brisk 80 minutes. You walk in, Chong Li's the big bad guy. This guy does the splits. Let's go. Yeah. Fight scene, montage, fight scene. and then after it, you're feeling great. You want to try and do the splits. You're doing jump kicks. So, and the best part of it is that is how I felt as, 11-year-old Coast Dynasty.
Oh, that is great.
That is how I feel as, 40X-year-old Coast Dynasty. I try and do a spin kick after you do it. I mean, it hurts a whole lot more now than it did back then. But so Bloodsport, shoutouts Chong Li, because that is my personal number one movie.
That's good. I really enjoy your list.
Awesome. Have you seen Bloodsport?
I have seen Bloodsport. Right. And one thing I can appreciate before I go into my number one is how different our movies are. Like, it's generational.
Yeah, and I love that. And that was sort of the thing that we were talking about before, is these getting to know CNC is going to be a really interesting sort of exercise in discovery, because like we talked about, we've known each other for about 4 years now.
Yeah, 4 years.
I'd say 4 or 5 years. I consider you a good friend of mine, but the bond that ties us is magic.
Yeah.
And it's surprising how little the two of us know about each other outside of that sphere. So going over this list, I love your list too, man. And it just you know what? If you told me to make a list that of what I thought your top 5 favorite movies were, I would have went 0 for 5. So So knowing this really is it's a great exercise, not just in sort of explaining what our movie tastes are, but just who we are. Yeah, it's been awesome. Like, I would
have batted 0 for 5 for yours too. 100% 0 for 5 for yours.
Well, because these can all be found on VHS. That's why.
Exactly, and a lot of people my age don't know what a VHS is.
Yeah.
So, okay. So going on to my number one. Going back to it, this is essentially this was a 6-parter. This was my first 6-parter. This was my first movie marathon. This changed me as a person. Okay. So, I'm going with the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit. Okay. The only reason why I add the Hobbit in there was because you have your main dish is Lord of the Rings, and the Hobbit is just the the special sauce on the side that you dip your stuff in and just enhances the flavor. So for me, The Hobbit enhances it. But the main one is the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Okay.
Literally seeing the definition of the hero's journey from start to end, seeing that there can be more than one main actor in this movie. 100%, because it goes into three different, not timelines, but three different directions. And you follow three different groups of main actors where they all have a backstory. They all have a goal in mind. And they're all trying to achieve it together, but they're not together.
Yeah.
Okay? This also scratches the huge fancy itch on my back. Like the dragons, the swords, the elves, the dwarves, the orcs, the goblins. This is the D&D nerd's favorite thing, and this was before I was into D&D, right? So this is my precursor to D&D. And it's just going into these movies, I remember watching, this is probably one of my more favorite moments, but going to the Return of the King, and like the theatrical cut for the Return of the King is like 3.5 hours long, and that's the theatrical. That's not the extended. And when I talk about Lord of the Rings, I always talk about the extended, because each movie ends up being like 5 hours long and whatever else. But me and my whole family, my mom, my dad, my sister, me, my aunts and uncles, my cousin, like there was at least 15 of us.
Wow.
We all went to go watch Return of the King. And I remember that this was before pre-seating. So we were in the very front row, and we were looking up with our necks. And we were looking back and forth the whole time. Even though we had a bad view of the movie, I still fell in love with it.
Yeah, there's that bond too, right? There's that personal touch.
100%. And like every movie has its great action scenes. Number 2 and 3 alone have their huge, big moment action scenes where everything is on the line and just shit hits the fan and everything is amazing, right? Yeah. So for me, the Lord of the Rings trilogy is by far my number 1. The Hobbit trilogy just makes it so much better because you get to see where certain characters come from, a lot more backstory, a lot more world building is made in The Hobbit. You see why the ring is very important, where Bilbo came from, right? This and that. No, not necessarily came from, but why he is how he is. You also got to see Gandalf. You got to see essentially how Sauron came into the world. Yeah. Right? So it explains so much more. I know that these movies are literally a fraction of the book. This isn't a 1-to-1 equivalent. This is a fraction of the book. And there's a lot of people who hate the movies because they don't include all the other stuff. But if they did, it would be a 80-hour trilogy just for the first 3.
It's already a 15-hour investment for the extended cuts. So, yeah, if you were getting somebody into it, I've never read the books. So if you were getting somebody into these movies and you tell them, yeah, it's a 15-hour investment, they're out. Or if it's more than a 15-hour investment, they're out. 15 hours is already
a long
stretching the limit. Like you said, I think the theatrical cut is a solid 9 hours of entertainment that you can expand on if you want to do it, if you want to look at the extended cut. But yeah, even the 9 hours, that is pretty much as far as you can stretch somebody's
attention span.
Somebody's attention span who isn't coming into it with a sort of pre-emotional attachment to these movies. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's funny. I've never read the books. I wasn't all that interested in seeing the first one, and it was Christmas Day, and me and one of my best friends, shout outs to my buddy Deej, we went, and he was done sort of all of his Christmas responsibilities and family stuff. So was I. Both Filipino, we tend to celebrate more on Christmas Eve than Christmas Day. Yeah, so Christmas Day, we were both free. He says, hey, let's go see a movie. And I was not interested in really seeing Lord of the Rings, but he was. So he said, let's go see Lord of the Rings. And I was like, oh man, I kind of want to go see Ali, starring Will Smith.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one.
They were both airing at the same time. He won. I was like, all right, man, you know what? Okay. You sold me on Lord of the Rings. I'm not really selling you on Ali. Okay, I'll go with you. And it was the best decision we had made because I got hooked. The battle scene in Two Towers is now, 20 years old?
Yep.
It is still the standard bearer for what a battle scene needs to be. every other battle scene going forward is compared to that one. Every big giant war piece from Game of Thrones was always compared to the battle scene in Two Towers.
Yep.
So, yeah, those movies. I don't have quite the emotional attachment that you do, but man, those are some good movies.
Honestly, what makes those movies even better is when you buy the extended cuts on Blu-ray or whatever else, or on
which
DVD,
I also owned.
Right?
Yeah.
Same here. I have every single. It's weird because I have like the Lord of the Rings in DVD.
Yep.
DVD extended, Blu-ray extended, and then the special boxes. I'm like, I have 4 or 5 copies of the same damn movie. This is messed up. But when it came to the Blu-ray extended edition, it also came with like 20 hours of bonus behind the scene content of them making the movie, the costumes, the funny stories, I'm like, oh man, this is even I can go back to Middle Earth, but now behind the scenes, this is great.
That is really sort of the one thing that I miss most about the sort of death of physical media. Yeah. Is like, I mean, I love Netflix. I love all the streaming services. It's just like click, click, boom, you've got a movie. I love that. But I do miss the golden age of DVDs where if you really were passionate about a movie, you really loved it, you would get a DVD and it would have those bonuses, the Easter eggs. Like, it would have alternate commentary. Like one of my favorite things in the world, and it's legendary, is there is a alternate commentary on the old Armageddon DVD.
No way.
Yeah, and it's basically Ben Affleck. It's I want to say it was Ben Affleck, the director Michael Bay, a couple of the other stars were there, and it's famous because Ben Affleck. Have you seen Armageddon?
Oh hell yeah!
Ben Affleck spends the entire length of the movie ruthlessly shitting all over the movie.
Really?
And just how zero sense it made for them to. It makes no sense for them to train oil drillers to become astronauts and not train astronauts to become oil drillers.
Oh my god.
Drillers.
Yeah,
and it just makes zero sense, and he does not get off that point, to a point where eventually Michael Bay is like, just shut up about the oil drillers. And you can see him, you can hear him in real time lose his mind. And we miss all of that. We miss all of that. And it's just, I wish that was still available. Like you can get, if, for example, Netflix is available on Armageddon, you could still get that alternate commentary.
That'd be sick if you can just go to the settings and go to the
Perfect.
commentary. That'd be awesome. I know way back when DVDs were new and people wanted to be different, people would hide Easter eggs with the DVD settings and go on the special. So I forget what movie it was, but you had to go to the special features and then you had to go to this thing to watch it. And once you watched it, it unlocked something in the extra. Like it was a whole puzzle to get this certain thing. And it's like, you can't have that now.
Yeah. Like
you can't have that now.
One of the ones, it's actually callback to one of my previous movies, Fight Club, their special edition DVD. If you actually watch the DVD, at the beginning of every movie, they do that sort of copyright warning.
Yeah.
It says if don't
infringe on these.
Don't copy this without express written consent or whatever. Yeah. If you actually read that, it starts like that. And then it eventually goes to, well, why are you reading this? What are you doing with your life that you're reading this? It's the same thing over and over again. You are wasting your life right now. Like it's amazing. And I wish that there was more of that, because it does really, like you said, movies are a nice escape, but if you can get emotionally invested the way we are in the movies that we've brought up, just having that extra for the people who really, really like that movie, it puts it over the top.
It's so good. It's great that we're talking about this, because it is an escape, especially with now.
Yeah.
This day and age, sometimes you just need to escape because you're locked up in your room or in your house for an extended period of time, and it doesn't matter what it is, find a way to escape, right? If it's through movies, media, whatever it is.
Now that I think about it, I didn't even really need to do the deserted island thing. We've sort of all been on deserted islands the last 18 months, right?
Right.
So yeah, like if I had 5 movies and only 5 movies, these are mine. And if you only had 5 movies and only 5 movies, these are your 19.
These are my 19. Exactly. Exactly. These are my 19. But anyways, let us know what you think about our list. If you don't like my list, or you don't like Coastal's, or you disagree in the order, let us know. Let us know what's your flow. What is your top 5? What works best for you? How would you rate your top 5? Would you rate it like me? Would you rate it like Coastal?
Yeah, another thing is, hey, if you liked the movie if you liked one of the movies on our lists and you have recommendations for movies that are sort of like that,
yeah,
hey, let us know as well.
Exactly. Doesn't matter what it is. If you have a comment, if you got a question, you can send it to us either on Instagram page or in the comment section of this post. Other than that, folks, Coastal, where can people find you?
You can find me at Coast Dynasty on Instagram. That's COASTDY Nasty. You can also find me at powerhouse.ph/Coast Dynasty. Join the conversation. Hey, there are no such thing as stupid questions. Toss them over to me there.
You got it. You can find me on Instagram at Caramel Thunder, Caramel with 2 L's. You can find us collectively on our Instagram page at the Unhinged Vibes Podcast. Also, in our description is our website. Our website's gonna be updated soon, okay? Because we got to put Coastal on there. We got to put Nelson on there. We got to put their descriptions on there, what they like, what they don't, what their favorite kind of date is, whatever else, with their favorite ice cream, whatever they want on there, okay? But we're going to update that. Also, one thing I do want to put in, I want to be eventually putting my deck text and my deck list on there. Yet again, if you listen to our previous podcast, they're my deck list. They're not good deck, just like what Coastal said. They're mine. So they're going to be janky sometimes. There's going to be recommendations, but let me know, Coastal.
Join the conversation, man. Shouts to the Filipino god, Dave Bautista.
We'll catch you guys on the next episode of the Unhinged Vibes Podcast. See you later.